And we're going to start with a rectangle. We'll round it off. We're mostly paying attention to the panel style here, and this is the base of it. And we need to sort of figure out a way of, creating that sort of 3D effect. So naturally, like some sort of like solid drop shadow or an inner shadow is the way to go with that. I'm not sure if you can see it here, but I'm actually like trying to create that little indent that happens, and it's a darker indent. There's like a step before you get to the golden trim, and it just creates like a nice little groove in there, and a tiny bit of separation, a little bit more sort of visual interest really. So duplicating the rectangle again, we're now focusing on creating that golden trim. It's always a little bit fiddly from this loom level, but yeah, hopefully it comes across okay on your bigger screen. I'm just trying to avoid it, the screen jumping about too much when you're watching it, because for me it's not always a pleasurable experience when I see that in videos. As you can sort of see there, like, there's probably a few ways you can try and skin this cat. I tried to do it with an inner shadow, but there's probably like a good chance you'll just end up like either duplicating a layer or stacking up a stroke or something like that to get that stepped sort of 3D effect for the golden trim. Like I mentioned in the past, one of the annoying things about Figma is you can't really stack stroke effects and give them different settings for like inside, outside, center and stuff like that. So you actually do have to duplicate your hierarchy in order to do it. But it's fine. It's not really the end of the world. Yeah, just creating the gradients. Obviously we can see that it's darker at the top where the light is kind of fading out underneath the banner that we can see where it says unlocked. So this intersection, there's a ridge on the outer side, which is what we sort of replicated, and then we're going to need to do the same for the inside as well. So it kind of like steps down, gets darker, steps up for the gold trim, then steps down again, and then steps up for the base color essentially. And then before you know it, we've essentially got the main sort of dialogue styling sorted. And it's just a case of refining things to match the radiuses that we're referencing and the colors and the highlights and stuff. So right now I'm just essentially fleshing out the inner part of the pop-up. And yeah, this is just like a little text information box. Really straightforward to do, drop shadow, inner shadow, that type of thing, and that gives you that stepped effect, which is what we're, sort of mostly playing with on this dialogue. So this will be the image section. Now, it's essentially the same styling, it's that stepped effect again. And then, yeah, we're gonna wanna, start working on the actual bit where it pops forward. So that will be the cream inner section now. Before I get to that, I'm just tweaking bits and bobs essentially, but now we'll sample the color. So one thing you'll notice is a lot of these processes within Figma is, honestly just a series of stacking effects and objects and trying to figure out where the light source is coming from and trying to make something that looks kind of realistic, even though it's playful. There's always an intention that it's anchored to something, some sort of realism, but in a stylized way. Now, this button's incredibly easy to do, to be honest. It's something no doubt you've probably done before. It's a very common style, and it's a series of just gradients that get us what we need, and a few sort of highlights here and there. Just selecting the mid value at the moment. Highlights and shadows, flipping the gradients. And this is the little beveled ridge. You just need to dial those, border radiuses a little bit, just so they fit the shape a little bit better. Obviously, adjusting the gradients too. Essentially just trying to figure out a way to catch a bit of the light and then placing the highlight. So entering in here and then just adjusting the nodes one by one, essentially, to get something a little bit more organic than just a regular ellipse. Looking pretty close already. Once again, it's another classic free-to-play text style. A gradient like face, and then essentially a subtle stroke with a strong drop shadow. At this point in my life, I should probably create a preset out of this and just be able to remove this manual task. So I highly recommend that you create some presets very similar to this, because no doubt you're going to be using them time and time again in the future, working on a free-to-play UI. Yeah, unfortunately I only had the demo for this typeface, so I wasn't able to get the same weight, but we get the idea anyway. Just refine the gradient values here to get something a little bit closer. Yeah, it's looking quite nice. Just doing a tiny bit of cleanup, making sure that the image section here is evenly spaced out in terms of the padding around the image in the insetted frame. To be honest, I probably should just create a style for this because it's the same gradient, but yeah, for at least speed's sake for the video, yeah, I just copied the CSS properties there and yeah, just adjusted the bits that got blown out. So when you copy the CSS properties, it copies everything, every attribute really. So now we're moving on to the slightly more, I'd say, challenging aspect of this build, but utilizing, you know, just sort of primitive shapes and Boolean operations, which are my favorite thing to do. We start to, you know, carve out this shape here. So there's a little bit of, you know, tweaking required. I'm essentially going to, yeah, merge all these together so we've got a cleaner shape. Essentially, this is the silhouette that we're working with. So quite a lot of the hard work has been done, and we're going to look at creating a gradient that rolls across the top, or across the front of it, sorry. And it's in this that gives you the 3D effect, because the light is obviously catching the sides, but also as it rolls away from the light, you know, we get that sort of like shadowing and then the sort of the mid-tone at the front. It just creates that sort of 3D sort of effect as it rolls across as the light rolls across the banner. So now we need to tackle the golden trim. So just duplicating that shape we created, we're going to essentially subtract these. So this detailing doesn't actually like spill out of the silhouette that we just created. And working on like a little bit of a drop shadow, just to give it a little bit of separation there. And this is going to be a little bit of the highlight, so it seems like it sort of steps down underneath the shadow we created. So I'm just trying to create that little bit of depth. I realised at this point it was a little bit chunky, so I'm just adjusting the live shapes to make it thinner, which, as we know, like, is just one of the like powerful things about, you know, Figma and the way they handle shapes versus a program like Illustrator. Like essentially non-destructive. So right now I'm essentially just like fine tweaking things, and I was supposed to like duplicate the golden arch, let's say, but for some reason it didn't work, so yeah, I'll have to duplicate that in a second. effect is looking pretty tight right now. Just a little bit of shadow on the overall ribbon, just to sell the idea that it's, you know, casting a light and that 3D depth that we're looking for. So the last bit that's missing is essentially the little ridge where it just catches the light before it rolls off. So I'm just adding that in. And obviously the gradient that goes across the face. The light would still technically hit the left and right in the same way, so it just helps sell the idea. Yeah, it's looking good. So the next part is obviously doing the unlocked aspect, which is incredibly difficult to do in Figma. Writing the text is fine, but arcing text in Figma isn't a feature that's supported natively, and the only options you do get really are third-party plugins or to do it manually, which is just a right pain, because the third-party plugins, you get one of them, you get 5 tries, and it takes 5 tries to, you know, get it right. And then after those 5 tries, you have to pay. And it's just like, I haven't had enough time to figure out if it's right for me or not. But also just an annoying thing as well is it's no longer live text like you would expect with, you know, Illustrator or Photoshop. So it's really painful, as you can sort of see. I'm just tweaking it using the plugins, and I'm not getting exactly the results I want. Yeah, so one thing that was like really baffling me is like, you know, the letter spacing, you know, after you've generated it, you know, how can we sort of format that and stuff? So what I ended up doing was using the auto layout to see if I can, try and let that control the letter spacing. It's kind of a bit of a hacky way of doing it, but you can sort of see it helped a little bit, but still wasn't perfect. I mean, this is like ridiculous in terms of a workflow, just to get sort of, you know, text on a curved path. And it's probably one of the worst things about using Figma for formatting text, really. Such a shame. In many ways, the quicker part of the workflow would be just to create the curve you want and then just manually set the text along that curve yourself, you know, that just, you know, object at a time. Using the plugins is just not great at the moment, to be honest. So right now I'm just focusing on the starburst effect, or the light ray behind the image, and this is essentially a series of gradient stops, and I'll fly through this. I'll just skip to maxing it out essentially, but we just create those stops and adjust the blending mode essentially, and you have your effect. So it's just a case of matching up to the radius that we can see for this image section. And I guess the final bit would be to do the little star effects, which is essentially a rectangle, a couple of circles, if it lets me drag them. And then we're just going to subtract those circles from that square. And then that creates a little star effect. We just duplicate a few of these, make them a bit random, probably group them together so we can just quickly copy and paste the pattern. It doesn't have to be too perfect. But that's essentially it. You know, as we sort of enter into this part of the tutorial, we've pretty much captured, you know, what we were hoping to achieve. So yeah, give it a shot and let me know how you get on in the comments below.